Okay, it's 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. Do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the agenda for this evening's meeting? We have a motion. Do we have a second? All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. Items. Anybody have any questions or comments on those?
Well, one thing was that cross country, how come we're just paying that now? That cross country fee?
Well, sometimes they wait till the season is over to be sure that we have it or whatever, and
Oh, I see.
you know what I mean,
Yeah.
to make sure it doesn't
Yeah.
get canceled, or especially this year. And even if they bill us a little bit early now, we're still holding on to it for a little while because it's rather good to hold on to it and then pay it rather than have to have them cut me a check back because they didn't attend or.
Right. And just out of curiosity, the DMAX, all the dual enrollment stuff, just out of curiosity, because of the whole COVID, do we have more of those?
That's probably a Rob question. Career Academy.
Like the Career Academy or the dual enrollment at DMAC, what about that? Man, there were like 36 or something on there. I can't remember exactly.
It may be up a little, but it wasn't. I mean, I know Career Academy is right in line with what we did, but now dual enrollment, I don't know for sure. Because those kids that just take one online, I don't know if they're doing it through DMAC or doing credit recovery. I see how many kids we have each period. But I would bet it's close to the same. I don't think it's spiked, but I can ask Travis, he would know for sure. But I know the Career Academy is about the same.
I think I can tell from the last vote, maybe. But go ahead, go on with your.
Any other questions on the consent items?
I assume all those, Van Manen and some of those, ballots, and all that, that's higher on the older, and there was some stuff, thermostats for them. Okay.
They were on the old.
Okay.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion to approve the consent items?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent items. All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. Consent items are approved. It doesn't look like we have any correspondence this evening. So we'll move on to the Baxter Early Learning Center report.
I think they've had a changing of the guard there with who's doing the minutes, so I feel like we'll probably be a little bit better with minutes going forward.
I was asked about the bus, they were wanting to use the bus.
Yeah, that, I did some follow-up on that, and they for sure can, as long as COVID is done. There was some kind of misunderstanding where someone over there thought that we said no, that they couldn't use our bus this coming summer, and that's just absolutely not the case. So I talked to Haley, she and I talked several times, and that's just, we cleared that up, that is not the case. We want everyone to understand that they absolutely can use our buses. They hire their own drivers, but they use our buses, and we're totally fine with that. So Haley and I, and just in general, have a good working relationship. She comes to our monthly meetings. Jason and Haley and the AEA and I and the preschool teachers have been working together. We're going to meet, is it next week, Jason? And work on some preschool things. So we're working together on several things. So yeah, but we wanted to make sure that that was cleared up.
Any other comments or anything on the Early Learning Center? Okay, we'll move on to public forum. So anybody's out there watching on Zoom, if they have something they'd like to share. I assume everybody got Sue Atkinson's email, had
And
that information, so, yep.
Jeremy Smith had stopped in and talked to me, and he wants to talk. So, Jeremy, I'm going to unmute you now. Actually, you have to unmute yourself, I think. Yep, you're unmuted now.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, thanks for having me. I just wanted to express some concerns and stuff that we had as the wrestling coaches for the new building being out at the sports complex versus across the street at the bus barn. Just wanted to, moving that out there, we see issues, especially with the junior high, on the fact that we would have to bus the students out there for practice. And I also wanted to, I guess, address some concerns that I had as a coach, also having 20 years in the construction industry. I don't think that we should be scared about moving along with the bus barn area. As far as a firewall goes, there is already one layer of sheetrock, and to meet qualifications for that firewall, we just have to put another layer of sheetrock up to have a 3-hour burn rating. And then as far as the AEA accessible bathroom, making the bathroom over there handicap accessible is really only making sure that we have a 3-foot door, the appropriate toilet height, along with handrails. And I also wanted to just let the board know that we also feel that we have enough construction people in the families, from the little kids wrestling all the way through our high school wrestling. I myself have an HVAC license. We have a couple of electricians, and I also have some contacts in the construction industry. So I really just we wanted to express our concerns with maybe trying to move forward on doing that across the bus barn, because I think we can save a lot of money and, also be able to have a room ready for next season for the wrestling team.
You can't see them, but everyone's shaking their head
Yep.
like, thanks.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
You bet. We'll meet you again. Anyone else? I don't see anyone else.
Okay.
Oh,
Hearing
wait,
none, it
wait,
looked like that.
somebody,
Okay,
sure. Let's see. It's Chad, Nicole. I unmuted you, so go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I tried to unmute myself, but it wouldn't work. So
Okay, I'm glad you figured it out.
okay. So I just wanted to thank the board for the last meeting, making that decision to bring the kids back to school, to try it, to see how it would work. I'm just sincerely thankful as a parent. I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm very grateful. And so, like I said, I just wanted to mention that. And then also, there's some new recommendations that came out from the CDC regarding COVID and students that are ages 10 and younger, saying that they should be the last to go remote and the first to come back. There's a report out on the website. I'm not sure how the school or the school board handles some of those policy updates. And so I was curious if any of those CDC recommendations would be incorporated into our current return to learn plan or our going remote plan. So again, I just really wanted to thank you guys. I really appreciate all of you.
All right.
thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. And we'll check into those requirements. I don't know that we'll add them or not, but we'll certainly look into them though. But thank you for bringing that to our attention. All right, I don't see anybody else. So
email that Sue sent out, Rob, she said she'd talk to you a little bit. Do you have anything you need to share on that, or just?
Jason just asked me that. Yeah, I think what, at least my conversation, I had multiple emails with Sue, may have been more specific to her personal situation with her grandson, so I wasn't ready when Jason showed me that she said we had talked. I felt it was maybe more specific. So, it was really around standards-based grading, some of the practices that may or may not be happening that would not support standards-based grading as the grades came out of the semester. I think Sue and I are on the complete same page, so it was just making sure kids are being, the grade is just a piece of feedback on what the kids are now able to do. She was concerned about in the hybrid, if there were assignments that were going home that day and then not being turned in, they were just getting bad grades or zeros, which would affect the grade, which would go, and I understand, I mean, we've just started to meet again as a staff. I think the hybrid limited itself to not be very standards based because we wanted kids doing it at home. We wanted to hold them accountable. We wanted to give them things to do and then score them and, you know, hammer them if they didn't do it. And I understand all that, but that's not in our philosophy of what a grade is. So I think it just got a little more gray, and we're starting to bring that, you know, truck back on the road just in the last month or so, meeting again Monday. So
Okay,
that was more about that. I don't want to be.
Yep, that's fine.
Say.
Sounds good. Okay, any other public forum? Hearing none, we'll move into the business items. And we have the building project update. Got access to the budget summary. Has there been any real changes on that, Julie?
No.
Okay,
I did want to bring up one thing. I contacted Jamie and Dale and Nathan Van Manen, and Pam was on the email too, trying to get to the bottom of the lightning bolt, and because it's not in yet. And Nathan was very apologetic. The parts are they're here, but now it has to be like above 40 degrees for like 3 days. Like there's a certain amount of time. So as soon as the weather is conducive to installing it, he is going to get his team here right away and get it installed. But they don't want to do it, like they don't want to rush it and then have it not be the right weather. So they kind of just fell into this. He said it's not an excuse and he feels bad about it, but they've had COVID hit their office hard. So a lot of their electricians and stuff just they've all been at home. So he was very apologetic, but I said, you know, like it's going to come up at our board meeting because they always ask about it because the whole community we're all dying to see this lightning bolt. So it's still in the works.
Okay, we'll move on to principals reports. Jason, do you want to go first?
Sure. So obviously, since the last time we met, we brought all the kids back. So that's been great since the beginning of the new calendar year to have all of our students here. I know, you know, several of the teachers had voiced to me, but to other people, I mean, I've had a lot of conversations with people where, as I mentioned last time, you know, we felt like things were moving in the right direction. We're making some ground from our extended summer. And then, you know, we went to hybrid and we felt like we were losing ground. But I know that routines are back in place. Teachers are working hard collecting data. I was in several classrooms the last week or so and seeing teachers progress monitoring, you know, whether it's, you know, official progress monitoring type stuff or classroom assessments, checkpoints. So I know teachers are working very hard with their students to try to get everybody moving in the right direction and growing in their learning. So we're quickly approaching the second trimester coming up here, middle of February, and obviously that's a reporting time for us to parents on student progress, but it'll fall right in line with our winter fast testing or screening, and so that'll be happening in the middle of February. And again, you know, we're pretty eagerly anticipating that. I'm trying to figure out where our kids are. I think we can make some assumptions, but that's really going to kind of tell us some stuff. And so, you know, different in past years, we tested pretty early in the window in the fall because we were just curious what our kids had lost over the summer. And now we're testing on the far back end of the winter one if we can, so that we have as much instructional time as we can to see how it's progressing. So looking forward to that. Along with that, we have a monthly Department of Ed meeting with our ESSA work that we're required to do. And so they join our BLT every month. And so this past Monday was that. It was a really, we got that, I won't share a whole lot of detail, but the DE pushed us in a lot of ways to talk about, you know, roadblocks to learning, things that are happening right now, what our feelings are about things as far as like things that just have us maybe not in the right place as far as, you know, being educators go and stuff. So that was the path they wanted to take with us. And it was a very candid conversation around a lot of things like culture within the school, within the staff, between the students and the school and staff. We talked a lot about students and their social emotional situations right now, which was, again, it was very open. The staff at our BLT was very willing to share and talk. And so one of the concerns that I do want to share with you was, along with fast testing, we'll be approaching ISASP here coming up in April. And obviously ISASP leads to your designation. And so we were, since we had a Department of Ed person right there on the Zoom with us, we thought we'd ask, you know, because I think no matter how hard we're working, that there's a looming thought that kids haven't grown, right, since the last ISASP. And with all this, they've probably gone the other direction because we didn't test ISASP last spring. And so what's going to happen with that? How does that affect us as a district or as a school? Because you don't want to be on the list twice in a row. And so, you know, are there some grandfathered years here? Are they pushing stuff back? And so I did want to share that no matter what happens, we do our annual SAMI. So we're, you know, trying to look at the health of our school and our systems. And so that'll happen whether, you know, our students do well or don't do well. But they did assure us that there's no plans for designation to be given out until the 22-23 school year. So they're pushing everything back. So really on some level, this ISASP, the next one, kind of sets us up. So then that final one will be our designation year again. So a little bit of a sigh of relief in our staff. I mean, it's not that we're like, you know, trying to push it under the carpet and wait for it. It's the fact that things are out of our control on some level, and we didn't want that to count against us when we're trying to do everything that we can do. So that was a little bit of a relief for the building leadership team to hear and know that they have, you know, time to continue to grow kids and continue to do the right work and really get us back on track to the work we were doing on March 13th. That was kind of put on hold. I mean, honestly, full transparency, everybody, I do feel like we've lost a little momentum, you know, all that kind of knocked us back, trying to find the path, uncertainty day to day, you know, early on in the school year and how things will go. So, like I said, bringing the kids back at the beginning of the school year was really, I think, a motivation for our teachers and a little bit of a morale booster to get the kids back in and get working again with them. The only other thing I'll share is we are making gains with our reading resource adoption. The teachers on the team have developed a rubric that we're going to use along with the help of the AEA. They brought us several examples of some what I would consider to be really solid rubrics for identifying a new material. And we worked through those and kind of streamlined a couple of them for a K2 and a 3-5 rubric. They're very similar in a lot of ways, but when they teach ELA, they're teaching different things. And so one rubric doesn't fit both, you know, as far as the rigor and or the foundational reading skills and things like that look a little different. So anyway, we work on that. We've got 3 resources in that we're going to look at and a 4th one on the way. And so on the snow day, our teachers actually, that was one of their activities they worked on our day on Friday at home. So they took home the rubrics, even though they're not in their final form. Each partner took home a resource that we had with us, and they spent some time familiarizing themselves with the rubric, familiarizing themselves with the resource, and trying to match those two up. You know, where do I find this stuff that's in the rubric within this so that I can do it? And some of the feedback that came back at our building leadership team meeting was, that's a ton of work. Like, you know, you could spend 4, 5, 6 hours on one resource in one grade level, and you still have 3 more to go through the rubric with. And so it's going to be a bit of a challenge over the next 2 months, because that's kind of our deadline or at least what we're setting for a deadline, that at the end of March, beginning of April, we're going to be looking towards making a decision. And so that's a lot of work when you're just getting 30 minutes here and 30 minutes there with your partner, you know, because like I said, you're looking at maybe 4 or 5 hours per resource times 4. That's a lot of time and energy put in there. But the teachers, you know, they really had some quality things to say. I think the one interesting thing that I picked up on from one of the teachers at the meeting was that we did a lot of that standards work with Todd, and started that process, you know, just really looking at our standards in depth and doing a lot of work with standards and learning targets and teaching cycles and things like that. But this would be the first adoption of a resource that we've had since that work. And some teachers have had experience before, but maybe not as much understanding of the standards as they look at that. And so that was kind of enlightening to them to really see what these new texts that we're looking at have and how they relate to the standards and cycles and assessments, all the things we've been working on. They're kind of seeing that in a different light, a different way of looking at things and trying to decide. So I believe we're gonna have some great conversations coming up. I really appreciate Josh organizing those meetings and really keeping us on our plan and moving us forward. And then of course, Terry, who many of you met, Terry Parker works for the AAA, and her and Janelle, the reading consultant, have spent a lot of time with us on that too. So it's gone really well so far.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Jason? Okay, Rob.
I wanted to give an AD update. I feel maybe that's everything that I start writing down. It just seems to eat a lot, or I focus a lot, but there are some really good things going on. One that you'll see quickly, we're going to get a new sign up over underneath the press box. If you've seen that sign, and you can see it from the road, it's orange, it's faded, it's not very good. So Pam, her crew, and I went out this week and looked. It's actually just was put over the top of a Raider sign, but I brought a guy out. We're gonna do something maybe a little more permanent. The plan is to have that in before track season. Again, I mean, it just seems like every time I tweet something out, it's a sweep. Our high school girls and boys win. Crossing our fingers, the last girls ranking, which will tell us about regionals, comes out tomorrow. We may have a really good situation if we get a little lucky tomorrow with the girls union. They're playing for a conference championship. Wrestling has definitely had the best season they've had in our Bolts history, winning matches and then placing at some tournaments. And our junior high, I know they were set back, but Zach and I worked really hard to get them as many as we can put back in, and they're playing constantly right now. And as long as the weather cooperates, they'll be full until about the second week of February. So everything's going well. It's just learning a lot and busy there. Wanted to let you know before I get into this semester, we did have our semester awards at the end of the semester in December, which was great. I don't know how much it was appreciated. I feel disconnected from the kids when we did it, but at least we had every teacher get on the Zoom with their kids in their classroom, give their classroom awards, some overall awards. We got to recognize kids, which at least felt good to our staff that we could at least give those kids a certificate and make sure we know the good work they're doing. Met with the music people this week and wanted to make sure. It just seems like we haven't seen our band or choir perform since we got back for a lot of reasons, mostly pandemic related. But the plan right now is to have a Spring Pops concert. So I'm excited about that. I think music will be on one day, the vocal one day, with the band the next, but that's what they're working toward. I know we have kids in music that are anxious to be able to perform. So we're going to do that. Speech as well. They're going to have their district and state speech stuff, but we're going to bring, like, if you remember last year, we brought the judge in after to be able to do that. We have a judge, and so our kids are going to get to perform, get rated, possibly get their state designation, but it'll be in-house. We're not going to go, as most schools are not going to go to a site for speech. Wanted to recognize Travis and Dennis. You talked tonight just about CTE or Career Academy and Travis. Those two guys, now we're all in the same office, so maybe it's what they've always done and I just haven't been right next to them. But I think what they do above and beyond counseling and instructional coaching, probably because of the pandemic, talking about online learning, talking about kids that are home and then here and then back to home, that those two have picked up the lion's share of that. and one, it's appreciated by me, but they're doing a great job with their kids on that as well. And the last thing, ironically, I had number one, and Jason and I didn't even talk, was kind of maybe where we're both focused right now, is data and where our kids are at. ISASP is right around the corner. I heard the exact same thing Jason did from a Zoom last week, that relax, we're gonna do it, but it's just, it's a guide, it's a dipping stick that we need to know where everybody's at for a year or two. So it lessened our anxiety a little bit, but we really wanted to see where our kids were reading and math. So unofficially, I have data, but it can be cumbersome, especially at the middle school. So we focus really 6, 7, and 8 on the data we've done in the last couple of weeks. We'll probably head over to the high school. It's a little more difficult because they have a different teacher from last year. But anyhow, really pleasantly surprised where our kids are at on what Jason talked about. Just it's a progress monitoring. It's a dipstick. It was like some ISAF stuff. We didn't know where the 6th grade was because they didn't even take the test as 5th graders. So that's kind of, we're just trying to figure out where they're at. But our 7th and 8th graders, good or bad, depending on how you want to look at our educational system or what you want to think we did with hybrid or what we did last spring, a large amount of our kids grew in the year they were supposed to grow from last year. I'm going to tell you in the 80% range of kids that showed a year's growth from what Kristen or Scott had done to where they were this year. Now, there's some big concerns in some specific areas that I won't get into, but we're a little more just relieved. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to kill the ISASP. It doesn't mean that they're being successful in every class by their grades, but just on a couple measures of where they're at on comprehension and some math, we're doing okay. Anxiously awaiting ISASP, which will be a much deeper dive into where our kids are at, but everybody's in the same boat. I mean, we're all trying to figure out where we're at. It's good to have our kids back in the building. I think minus maybe 2 or 3 areas, it feels pretty normal. I think our classrooms were already spaced out. You know, we're looking more when we don't have subs, which we don't get, very few subs. So about every time either our teachers are covering or we use those collaborative spaces, which we said we were going to do, which is great. And I'm sure Julie and I haven't even had a chance to look at that, but I would bet our sub pay is the bet. I mean, we're saving money there, but the collaborative spaces are pretty large. And lunch is a little crowded, but it's going well. We're hanging in there, and it's just day to day. But it's been a good start to the semester, and I would say right now it's kind of starting to feel normal, whatever normal is from where we were at the end of the semester. So yeah, data was good for a small little piece that we looked at.
As far as the sub goes, because you think we're on the lower end of the pay scale, or just there's not many subs?
I think it can always help. I mean, you hear little pieces, well, Newton's 10 more, or, the Metro, we're not ever going to meet the 150 or
We're pretty
whatever.
competitive.
Yeah, I mean, I think they just bumped up. I think they're 5 over us. I don't know that for a fact, Julie. I just heard that maybe last semester that but it's within, if it's $5 or $10, I'm not saying people don't make a decision for $5 or $10 a day, but it's just they're not, those people aren't coming in. I mean, we're short pairs like crazy right now at $10 an hour. You're just not getting them. But we did fill a long-term sub. We get a few. I'm sure crosses Julie's desk too. We have 2 or 3 that will work, especially if we can get them out a little ways. But if a teacher calls in the morning, we virtually 0 that we've had come in. So then
We've had a couple that were in the building a lot prior to the pandemic that they just said, we're not doing that anymore. We're just not gonna.
And there's no new ones. So I would imagine anybody who's goes to get a job, finding a job with all the people who said, I'm not going back, would be my guess. We're just not getting anybody. But luckily, because of where we're at with Google Classroom and being able to do things virtually, I mean, we had a teacher gone before break, leading up to with some COVID issues and stuff, and taught the entire class every day Zoom, and we kind of had people in the room watching between Travis, Dennis, and I. Sometimes we put them in the collaborative spaces. And, I mean, teacher was happy with what she got. So I mean, I think it's the way of the world. Sometimes you got to put an eye on kids a little bit, but it's going pretty well. without, especially at the high school level. Middle school, almost always will pay just that little bit to give up a prep, so, or we'll put groups together in the collaborative space. High school, we give them a lot of freedom to get their stuff done because the teacher's giving it to them.
We're about $3,300 less at the high school, at the secondary level.
Compared to this time last year?
Yep.
So. Good and bad. I mean, to me, it's a lot more good, just because I know the quality. Our teachers were already giving them, hey, go on Google Classroom, it's all there. So that sub sitting here going like this, and really just making sure, we just don't have problems with. So, you know what I'm saying? It's like it was one thing back 15 years ago when the teacher would be teaching and it's all here. I mean, they're just really monitoring. And if we had more paras, we could use that for sure. I think, are you back to good or still short one?
Good flush right now. I mean, we're right where we need to be
We're
right now,
too
but
short.
we're gonna be down one when she goes on maternity.
Any other questions for Rob? Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the at-risk dropout prevention application.
And this is just a thing we do every year. And so that amount, $89,003 is given to us. We didn't calculate that. It just comes from the DE, but we have to approve it in our board meeting, and then we attach these minutes to the report. So like do they have to read all that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Or
no.
somebody can just
Anybody
move
have
to,
any, any questions or discussion on that? So whoever makes the motion needs to kind of follow the wording there. We have somebody like to do that?
I'll move to approve the request to the school budget review committee for the modified supplemental amount, supplemental aid for the 21-22 dropout prevention program, in the amount of $89,003.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, roll call vote.
Corey Robinson,
Yes.
Debbie Meyer,
Yes.
Colette Kunkel, Kim Ticky,
Yes.
John Winthrop.
Yes. Okay, that action's approved. Next item is board policy update. Michael, do you want to cover that?
yeah. So the original board policy expired with the Coronavirus Act. It expired in December. So we just need to decide what we want to do for going forward. A lot of districts have just not done anything. They've just let it expire. A lot of districts have come up with different policies. I was just on a Zoom today, and one of the things they talked about was allowing just either making a board resolution, maybe not board policy, and then just allowing your staff to use their sick leave for quarantine days if they need to. That would be my recommendation, and whatever we decide would be, we should probably make sure it expires March 31st. Another thing they talked about to think about was if people have used all their sick leave, like they've already, like maybe like someone had a baby and used up all their sick leave. Then they said, it's okay to work on an individual basis with your teachers, and try and find ways to help fund that so that we don't have to have our staff on unpaid leave. Or if we were to send a teacher home because somebody in their class tested positive, that would be an option that the district could use some of our CARES Act funding to help cover that expense. But like if a teacher, like if their child tested positive and they needed to be home, one thing we could allow for is for them to use their sick leave for that quarantine time. So, but it's up to you guys. So we just need to decide what we want to do. Right now, we haven't really had much of an issue. We've had a couple people since Christmas break that tested positive, but they had plenty of sick time, so they just used their sick leave.
And the time period as of March 31st to expire is,
It was given to us by
By our lawyers.
okay.
So this wouldn't necessarily be under the, you know, the coronavirus. It'd just be kind of our own, not necessarily policy or however we want to set it up. Be our own setup.
Right.
Because the coronavirus, actually, that thing went away.
That went
So that-
away.
You have to call it something different.
Right,
basically.
yeah, yep.
And I was on a call with Margaret Buckton. She's ISFIS. And one of the things she recommended was to not necessarily change board policy. Like this is expired. So she just suggested even having just a board resolution that will allow our staff to use their sick time for quarantining if necessary.
It's just cleaner that way. You know, if you have it in board policy, then when it expires, then we have to go back to board policy again and amend it again. So if you have a resolution that just expires, then it's just done and over with at that time.
Okay. What's the board's thoughts on how to handle that?
I think that sounds good. We have to take care of the staff.
To extend the
Yeah.
sick leave to
I mean, a lot of
Allow
places are
quarantine.
doing that outside of school districts. I mean, right, we have to take care of the staff,
right.
working through individual situations, but basically, yeah, let it be here. And the part about where you would work directly if there's a situation, you know. You guys have always done that
Yeah.
anyway.
Right. So we would do whatever we could to make sure that
Yeah.
you know, staff was getting a paycheck. We wouldn't want to send somebody home with
Right,
say, sorry you're sick, but now we're gonna
right.
take your paycheck too.
Any other discussion? Okay, so if I'm hearing everybody correctly, we would
By resolution.
by resolution, add quarantine as a viable condition to use personal sick leave or family sick leave, and allow that to go through March 31st of 2021. Does that cover everything pretty much? Okay, somebody want to make a motion to that effect?
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion, do we have a second? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's approved.
Here, do a roll call vote.
Okay,
Corey Robinson,
Yes.
Debbie Meyer,
Yes.
Colette Kunkel,
Yes.
Kim Ticky,
Yes.
John Northrup.
yes.
And then we also want to rescind the FFCRA policies.
Okay. Somebody want to make that motion?
So
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Do we need to do roll call on that too? Okay, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's approved to rescind that.
we get towards the end of March and things are still going, you know, as they are now. We need to revisit that then again.
Yep.
Preferably maybe not wait till April.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
so then we're looking at, we could still do it in our March board
Yeah.
meeting. It'll be early enough that we can do that
I just don't want to get caught like,
behind
you
the
know,
eight ball.
after the first, you know, after the first year now, here we sit
mhm.
kind of up in the air, at least this way we've got
Yeah.
it covered.
And as far as the staff, we'll get to this in my report, but we have the COVID vaccinations happening. So the first round is February 5th, and then the next round will be 28 days later. So really by 28 days after, like March 5th or whatever, our staff should be all, not everyone chose to get vaccinated, but 85% of our staff has chosen to get vaccinated. So unless it was like a family member or something that tested positive, we should be pretty set.
Is that the Jasper County Health Department
Yeah.
that lines that up?
Yeah.
Schedules?
Yeah, they've been so helpful. So she contacted us, I think Monday, and said, get ready, like this could happen. And they'd asked us if we wanted to have it here at school. And we said, yeah, for sure. So they've worked with Sarah and we've scheduled it. This was a great idea Sarah had to put it on a Friday. So in case anybody has like a reaction or doesn't feel well, they'll have the weekend to then kind of recover from that. And then they said, either stagger it or do it on a Friday. So we're gonna do it Friday. And so they'll bring their nurses in to do it. And then actually, I think they're gonna do the BELC staff at the same time. So we'll get our first set February 5th, and then the next round is 28 days later. And ours is the Moderna vaccine, is what they told us. I think I looked it up and it's like that one's 95% effective. So
After 2 doses.
after 2 doses, yeah, the first dose is like 50-ish, but we all have to get our second dose. So yeah, we're excited about that.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the Baxter Joint City School Work Session.
Yeah, so I visited with Jennifer, we've emailed just a bit, and I wanted to make sure the city still was interested in doing that, and they are, so I told her I would visit with you guys to make sure that you still wanted to do that. And it's actually the city's turn to host it this year, so if you guys are still interested in doing it, they seemed interested as well, so I'll just give her the green light and we'll set a date and get moving forward on that. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right.
Next item is the annual board work session.
And this is just, I linked the agenda. It's really just the same agenda that we've always had, but I just wanted to make sure it was still good, if there's anything you want added or taken off. We haven't started, I mean, the data that's in there is last year. We haven't done anything with it. We just copy and pasted the agenda from last year. And then we had set the dates for 2 half days. And we did it that way last year and it seemed to work well. So we just did the corresponding dates, March 1st and March 3rd, if that works for everybody. Okay. Like the first night we did mostly academics and all that kind of stuff. And then the second night was more, finances. I'm sure that at some point Julie will get a menu or something for.
You can think about it because
Yeah.
we still have February yet.
Yeah.
But we have a few more options now. So.
Anybody see anything on that agenda they'd like to change or add, or
And you could think about it and let us
Yeah.
know in
Yeah.
February if you
you can
want.
email Michael and if you
Yeah.
see something.
Because I do know that we have some things to add to it. So.
We'll move on to open enrollment.
All right, so we have Amy Schreier Lynn for her daughter Jocelyn, who's a freshman coming from Colfax Mingo. And then we have Gavin Catman and Journey Catman from their mom and dad, Justin and Lisa, and they are going to be coming to us from Newton as well. And then, and actually the Lisa is a para in our preschool, so it's kind of interesting. So she wanted to like have them start as soon as she could, but it was past it.
That'd be
They
for
lived
next-
yeah, so
next
it's for
fall,
next
right?
fall.
Are these all for the fall?
Well, actually, Jocelyn is starting now,
Okay, but the others. would
but
be
the others are for
one
fall.
for the fall. Got it.
Yeah. And then the other, Jennifer McMahon on behalf of her children, Michael and Zachary, they moved to Newton. So, but it was kind of a goofy thing. Like, so they moved like the week before Christmas break. So the kids were still, they wanted to just finish out the semester here. So we let them, but then technically they had to open enroll to Newton. So it's really just a paperwork thing. They're already going to Newton now. They just finished up the school year, like the last week or so of December with us.
So when it says to continue to attend Baxter, they're actually,
Well, it was just for like those
oh,
5 days.
I see.
Yeah. We were gonna just kind of let it go, but then Newton noticed it and they called us, which was fine. Like we're glad they did. We just had to get the paperwork
Got it.
taken care of.
Just paperwork.
Yeah, it was just a paperwork issue.
Anybody have any questions? We have a motion to approve the open enrollment applications as presented.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. Open enrollments approved as presented. Next item on the agenda is personnel.
So yeah, I didn't get any takers on our early retirement, so. I guess we'll have to try again next year. Which is good, because we've got some great teachers that we didn't want to lose, but,
Sounds like they want to stay.
yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to facilities, grounds, and transportation.
So, we had an inspection that they came in and looked at our stuff, and 2 of the vans, didn't pass. And Julie chimed in too as well. So one of them was, we were gonna fix it, and the other one, it's maybe not worth fixing. So we're trying to figure out, we may have some, a special ed pot that we need to get a van with, because we might have a student that needs transportation, and so we might be wanting to use that. And am I getting that right? So
I see it says there that we've received bids on both, but we haven't even opened up the process yet, so I'm not sure.
Is the one that we're gonna fix, is that something we can have done over Nevada there? Or-
I think it's like rust and stuff, isn't
It
it?
is, it's rust.
But she does body work.
I don't think so. I know that we're having Tim do it.
Okay. I thought he said they did it over there, but
I could, you
Yeah,
can,
we can have, sure, I
clarify
can
with
check,
Deb.
yeah.
in that blue van, that's the one that we always kind of stayed
Yeah,
close
pretty
to home with and
old.
went for
Yeah,
quite a
that's
while.
Pretty old.
the
Yeah.
blue van has seen its better days, yeah.
Kind of between here and the
Yeah.
sports complex.
It probably,
That's really bad.
well, and we are using it, so, yeah. I was gonna look to see, I can.
Okay. Have you had any other meetings with Story
Have we
Construction
said
since
our
our
last
last?
meeting? We have
No.
one next Wednesday.
Yeah, we have one next week.
Okay.
We usually have them before the board meeting, but then they had a bunch of stuff that they wanted to do, and then with Christmas in the middle, it was gonna work better to just do it, next week. So, yeah, but this might be a good place to talk about, that wrestling, Jeremy's conversation about wrestling.
I think we should probably put that on the agenda for next month so we can discuss it a little more in depth. But in the meantime, talk with Story on that and say, hey, I think we probably want to rather just bust into it. I mean, it's a good idea and I'm all for that, but have some plans drawn up and maybe they've got somebody that can do that and then maybe have like Story look it over for us.
Well, who looked at it and said that it was not a fantastic idea?
So that was Jeff and Andrew. So they're 2 architects from Story,
Okay.
which I very much respect them. But, Rob and Hass and I are not architects. So if they tell us you need to do these things,
Uh-huh.
then we're just like, okay, we need to do those things. But then just visiting with Jeremy, he was explaining that in Jasper County, there's not a ton of permits you have to have. So it's not quite as complex as it could be, but I don't know that to be a fact. I believe Jeremy when he's telling me, I just don't know. So we'll have to visit with Andrew and Jeff and just say, okay, if we have some dads or some whoever's that want to do this, can they? Is that like, do we have to have it go through an architect, or can we use volunteer labor and have them do it? We just want to make sure we're doing it right. But if we can do it and have volunteer labor, that would save us a ton of money, so we could get it done, sooner. That'd be great. But I just need to know for sure that that's okay. It's, different, I think, when you're doing like a project like a school than if, Troy comes over and helps fix our basement. That's that's a different deal, you know, so I just wanna make sure we're doing it right.
Cause in that building complex committee thing, you feel a little pressure to hurry up with this building because of wrestling, because there's a dire need for wrestling.
Mhm.
That would help alleviate some of that angst over, you know, getting something up quick. Want to
Right,
do it the right way, obviously, and we will do it the right way, but, you know, there's a lot of pressure to get that wrestling room.
right, and one of the things I've emailed with Jeff and Andrew about was if we decided to do wrestling here and put that back on the table, do it here in the bus barn, then that changes the scope of the project out there.
Right.
And so, he and I talked about that just via email a few times in the last, you know, month or so. And so I know that they know that that's still a possibility. And so I'm not quite sure what they're gonna roll out with next Wednesday, but, they know that that's still on the table. So, because that's what I said, I don't want you guys to go, meaning Story, to go to a ton of work. And then we're like, oh wait, actually we changed our mind again. So that's where I want us to have a solid plan. But if we can make it work here, great, because then like you said, that takes the urgency out. And then we can also plan more for some of the other needs rather than having it be a wrestling room. Could it be the locker room, concession stand, bathroom built into that gym space? I mean, it just changes things.
As an AD, and if that works over there, is that a good solution? I mean, do you like that idea?
Yeah, I guess my thought process was something had to get done.
Right.
So I thought that was the best idea. I think Story's pretty negative on that idea. At least that was a pretty clear feeling when we walked with them. So then it was like, well, the second thing I went to is, do we have anything else in town? Is there somewhere else that we can do it that's better? I don't know if it's just code or they didn't like the firewall or I don't know. So then we were back to, well, maybe it's out the complex. So then the wrestling coaches kind of in general, the same thing Jeremy said, which I understand those concerns, having to get junior high kids out there. It's going to be the focus of the plan, which they all seem like they would rather have a smaller, they just need a room. We don't. So then I came back full circle after listening to them and just went to Michael and said, I don't know if we can do that, but I would do everything we possibly could. It makes so much more sense to me to answer. I just know, even like you said, I was starting to hear there's zero chance, even if we want to do it out there, it was going to be ready for the fall. And so then it's like, I mean, now that after COVID, that gym will not be an option. I don't know if the lunchroom again, but this will be the third year we've told the wrestlers, guess what? We don't have a place for you. So I definitely listen and believe that we have to find the best answer. Now, I think it's probably not anything that's connected, I think is probably the better answer that we can just get to. But I don't know enough to know if we can do it. I felt like we could do it. I mean, I probably was around Neil for way too long, but you just
Yeah.
got it done and you asked for forgiveness and it was okay and we just did it. Then I told Michael, I've lived on that third floor. I would be hard pressed to think some of those things actually make code if somebody came over, but I'm.
Well, we
older.
were grandfathered in
Yeah.
for that, but probably not for that.
Like Jeremy said, though, I mean, these guys are all licensed, you know, electricians, HVAC, whatever. So I mean, they're not like they don't know what they're doing. So I think I feel better about that, you know, that, you know, we have licensed people actually doing the work out there if they were to do it. So I mean, that makes me feel better that if it's got to have a firewall, they know what that means and they're going to make it right. And electrical is going to be good. So yeah, I think Story, you know, they're just thinking, oh, we're gonna get a bunch of yahoos out there, throw up some drywall and call it good. But you know, these guys know what they're doing, and I think
To me, if the coaches, and I assume the parents of the athletes and that are okay with that, hey, more power to them, I guess. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not to say no to
I
that,
mean,
so.
I did a little left turn too, because I thought that may be the best answer, but they may not be real happy about that answer. And then it came back, that was their choice of the two, just because I know the other needs out there, the scope, the budget, it just seems to me to make sense. So now you can get out a year or two out there and not be pressed on.
Yeah, it was urgent
And I'll
matter.
be honest, there's a lot that the sharing of the facility. So even if it was out there, then we're rolling mats, removing mats, somebody else is used, where if they just have a room, 365, that they could have summer wrestling, open mat, little kids, all that they just have their space. That's where they're coming from, and I understand that completely.
Well, if you guys want to talk the story a little bit when you meet with them again, and then we'll put it on the agenda for our next meeting that we can dive into a little deeper here as a board, so.
Maybe, I guess, if like Jeremy and those guys maybe have a little more information on who might kind of do what.
Yeah,
Does Jeremy come to our complex? Is it Jeremy that's there?
His brother.
Jeff.
Is his brother? Okay. Is his kid a wrestler too? The brothers? No. Are there any wrestlers? Well, Josh goes. Josh will be there.
Oh.
He comes to our committee meetings.
okay, we'll move on to superintendent's report.
All right. Not tons of stuff since we met last. We've got started on the calendar just a little bit. Actually, we started working through this year's calendar, trying to figure out where snow days went and makeup days and Drake Show days. And honestly, I think that having the kids have a snow day and the teachers have a work day worked really well. Like Jason and Rob both were able to spend a little time with their staffs. They had some Zooms and kind of just got some things rolling, so that worked well. And so we've got like our last day of school set as June 3rd. I'm gonna have us dismiss at 11 that day instead of a full day because it's pushed back so far. We've already got middle school baseball and softball starting, so they've rescheduled a few things, but if we can do the 11 o'clock dismissal on June 3rd, we can play new baseball. Is it baseball or softball? I don't know. It's middle school has a game that day at noon. So we can just end school, start summer like immediately. So we have plenty of hours built in. So ending the day at 11 is no problem. And really, I think the big discussion that Jason, Rob, and I have had is just where do you put conferences and really how our conference is going to look, going forward. Because the actual schedule, there's not a ton of wiggle room. There's just
Parent teacher conferences?
yeah, as far like for the when we're building next year's calendar, when we're trying to look at where do we, sorry, I kind of jumped all over the place there. So when we look at the calendar, like, is there anything we want to tweak or any of that kind of stuff? There's really not a lot of stuff that we can move. Just our conversations all revolve around where do we put conferences so it works best for both elementary and secondary. And there is no good answer because it either works best for elementary or secondary, but it almost never works best for both. And then you have to figure out, well, what if we put them at different times? But then that teacher comp day, that's where the trouble falls. So we'll probably leave them pretty much where they are. I think we'll talk through it a little bit more. But as far as, getting input about spring break, if we send out a survey, we get like half the people that say we love spring break, the other people say we hate spring break. Some say we want to end the semester before Christmas. Some say we'd rather have it 50-50. So we kind of have the calendar we have, and it just pretty much works for us. So people at least know what to expect. So I don't anticipate much change as far as that. COVID, I talked about the COVID. The next thing is that little flyer. That's kind of an like we had the flyer for years, but it had the old superintendent, old elementary principal, just so we needed to update it. And so we worked with the AEA, and actually the yearbook sent us several pictures. That was really nice of them. Worked with the yearbook to get some pictures of our kids, and then they put together this flyer for us. And I kind of laughingly said, that's 3 years worth of work and 195 pages of dissertation into like 10 bullet points. So, but I did send it to my major professor and say, look at this, I'm finally published. So anyway, I had them make like 50 or 100 of these that we could hand out to prospective families. And we've had several in the last probably the last 3 weeks, I've had maybe 4 different families reach out to me that are either looking to move to Baxter or are wanting to open enroll here. So we just thought we'd get some fresh stuff in people's hands. And then I'm working with the Chamber of Commerce, and we're putting together these little welcome bags. And so I've put my business card in there, and then they have all these like different businesses in the community that have had, you know, their business cards, or like the restaurant, maybe their menu and a $10 off gift card or whatever. And so we put some booster like bolts, window clings in the bag, and then I'll give some of these to the group to put in the bag. And then we've also been working with McKay Gowdy. He has a business where he makes marketing videos. And so he's met 3 or 4, probably 3 times or so with Jason, Rob, and I, and kind of came up with the concept of the videos that we want to put together. And so he's going to put one together for us that's going to be about a minute or 2, and it's just a real quick overview of Baxter, and then we'll you know, put it on our social media, we'll put it on our website, we'll use it to really market all the things we've got going on here. And then over the course of the next year, he's going to make a series of, you know, 1 to 3 minute videos that are a deeper dive into different things. I can't remember the topics we all came up with, but you know, some of them are like, for lack of a better term, are K-12ness and are getting involved in relationships, just kind of hitting on things. And then we've given him a list of parents and students and teachers and community members that we wanted to interview. And so we just want him to put together this kind of our Baxter story in video form and just get it out on our website, because some of the research I've been doing is people are looking to your web when they're wanting to move somewhere, they're checking your website and they're saying video is what sells. Not that we have to sell, I mean, but video is what they click on, and they just want to see what we're about. And so we want to have a new updated video that just really tells our story, because we know that you know, the more kids we can get here, just the more stable we'll be, and we're slow, steady growth, and that's awesome, but we need to continue with our slow, steady growth. So
then that video would be kind of on the landing page. I'm just on the
yeah,
page now.
yeah.
Nice.
And so we're not quite exactly sure how it's all gonna roll out. And then we want to have some of the things that, you know, there's so many cool things that we do, but there's so many things within the school that are seasonal. Like we'd love to get some really cool football, you know, Friday night video, but we can't get that right now. We want some, you know, green of like the playground, and, you know, but it's covered in snow. And we talked about, you know, is it possible to take some old video? But then when we look at the videos that McKay's put together, I mean, they're really high quality. So then we said, well, we don't want to use like some of McKay's really high quality video with some video I snapped on my phone, and then he like splices that in, you know, we're like, we'd rather have it look high quality. So it's going to take us a little bit of time, but he'll be able to put it together, kind of our story over the course of a year. So it'll be like a little series of videos. So we're excited about that. And then this last one, the special ed department, we've talked about this a bit over the last year or so. I don't know if you remember last December, we had the AEA come in and just do an audit for us and just see like what's going well with our special ed department and what things need to be worked on. And so they had just finally came together in about March or so of last year and kind of shared with Jason, Rob, and Josh and I shared their findings. And we were starting to talk about like, okay, well, what can we do to continue the great things we have going on and then fix some things that maybe need to be tweaked. And then COVID happened. And so we really hadn't done anything with it. And so right before Christmas break, the 3 of us met with our AEA special ed consultants and then some instructional coaches from the AEA, and just talked about all the things we've got going on and how do we move forward with it. And so what they've done, and I'm really excited, they've created a class for us that's going to be the 3 of us and Josh and then our whole special ed staff. And we meet this Friday for a half a day and next Friday for a half a day, and then once a month for a half a day for the rest of the year. And then our teachers are gonna be able to get a credit for it as well, which is awesome for them, like a renewal credit. But we're just gonna take our special ed and just take a deep dive into how do we take things from where we are to make them just top notch. I mean, not saying that we're not doing great stuff, we are, but just how do we take it to the next level? And so we're really excited about that. And it kind of just dovetails in with what Jason and Rob are talking about. Like, you know, we've just been in survival mode for so long that we're just almost to the point now that we're like, okay, we're getting ready to get the vaccine and we're ready to turn a corner. Like, how do we start to rebuild that momentum with things that are about moving us forward and not just keeping our head above water? So I think that ties in a lot with like what Jason's talking about, what Rob's talking about. You know, he's getting back in his SRG. Jason and his team are digging back in with the ESSA work. We have our, we call it our CIA team. It's our curriculum instruction assessment team. We meet once a month, and that's the three of us, Mr. Russell, Mr. Hasselbrink, and Mr. Vaughn. And we're meeting with AEA to really start digging back into that ESSA stuff that we were working on right before COVID happened, but more at a district leadership level. So we're meeting tomorrow morning for a couple hours with them and with our AEA people to help us start really moving forward. So it's exciting to finally be back in the instruction instead of just only the health and safety. But that was clearly had to be a priority for the last several months. So it's nice to be almost ready to turn the corner. So otherwise, that's all I've got.
Might want to get some of these to Neil Seals and Stephanie Dart, like a couple dozen to each
You
of
bet.
them, so.
And actually, Deb had to go up to Neil's office today to do something, and I gave her 2 or 3 of them to drop off with Neil, but I'll definitely get some to Stephanie as well. Just, yeah, like, get them out there. So get them to the bank, get them to, if you know friends that are looking for somewhere. People online know friends that are looking. Tell them to stop at school. We'll get more of these printed out pretty easily.
Okay, and then we've got our tentative dates for.
Oh, yep.
Yep, for the next meeting, which we're gonna have the annual facility tour. So we'll start at 4:30.
Where would you guys like to eat for that night? I'll bring it in, but we could do wherever you like.
Matter to me.
I'm easy, so. Why don't you just send us out an email, Julie? If you pick where, and then we can respond with what we want, so.
I will. I'll probably, my initial thought is I'll probably do the corner store for this, and then maybe for our work session, we'll do the diner.
Okay. Sounds good. And then our annual board work session, which we talked about earlier, March 1st and 3rd.
And I'll get with Jennifer and we'll try and get a date figured out for that joint city school one.
And then our March and April board meetings will be the second Wednesday instead of the 3rd, so.
We're just gonna be seeing all sorts of each other in the next few.
Right, that time of the year.
Yeah,
Time of
it
the
is.
year.
Are we gonna, for our tour, are we gonna be able to go through the rooms, or how, is that gonna be okay, or?
Yep.
Okay,
We'll have the janitors have them all open.
all right, sounds good.
Yeah, in all my
Anxious to
years, I haven't got to do this tour yet, so I'll be
I'm
exciting.
anxious to see how long it takes us,
Right,
because this will be our first in the new building.
before, we'd always have to hurry to
Yeah.
kind of get done, but
Yeah.
hopefully the high school should be just kind of a quick walk through.
A little drafty in the new building.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, does anybody else have anything? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. Meeting's adjourned.
All right, I'm gonna end this meeting, so thanks everybody for zooming in.